Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another session of the Festival of Enterprise COVID-19 webinar series. I'm David Stevenson, your host, and thank you for joining us this morning. I'm joined this morning by Teresa Boughey, who is the CEO and founder of Jungle HR. Teresa, wonderful to have you this morning. How are you?
I'm very well. Good morning.
Teresa will be taking us through a presentation this morning on diversity and inclusion, COVID-19 lessons on diversity and inclusion. The presentation will cover the current diversity and inclusion strategies, why it needs to remain a priority for leadership, the impact of enforced working at home is likely to have on diversity and inclusion, how this current situation allows organizations to rest their inclusivity journey, and what steps you can take to help your people with an inclusive reintegration. So with that, I'll hand it over to Teresa, who will take us through a presentation, and then at the end, we'll open it up to questions and answers. So Teresa, please take it away.
Great. Well, good morning, everyone. Let me just work out slide share. There we go. So yeah, absolutely welcome. I'm thrilled to be here today. Like many individuals, I am working from home, so I'm going to sort of apologise really if at any point my son comes in and starts sharing with me or asking me for help with his homework, and I'm not quite sure of the topics today. It could be geography, it could be history, and or my dogs run around the garden and start barking. So, but those are obviously the joys of the current situation and working from home. So yeah, I'm really thrilled to be here, and as David sort of introduced, today's session really is about why it's really important that we sort of integrate diversity and inclusion initiatives into people programs, and we have to resist the urge to devalue sort of diversity and inclusion, which sadly may be the case for some organisations. So just a little bit about me, really, and I'm going to say why I'm here in front of you today, albeit virtually. So my background is corporate HR. I have over 25 years HR experience. I've worked for a number of organisations before setting up my own organisation 12 years ago. So I stepped off that corporate treadmill and stepped into the world of entrepreneurship. I'm really proud to say that I've worked with a number of significant brands and on a number of projects. I'm now a non-executive director for my local NHS hospital, which I'm sure that you can appreciate in the current situation. It means that they're working incredibly hard and really sort of challenging times for them. I'm a TEDx speaker, and my TEDx is all about overcoming diversity fatigue. So again, a great one that aligns itself with our presentation today. I'm also best-selling author of Closing the Gap: 5 Steps to Creating an Inclusive Culture. And that book was awarded a highly commended status at the Business Book Awards 2020 recently, which I was really thrilled about. I have a podcast, Inclusion 24/7, because for me, inclusion should be 24/7 and not just when people are looking. And I'm also onto all-party parliamentary groups because for me, it's really important to have a voice and a seat at that table. And so I'm on the all-party parliamentary group for Women and Work and also Women in Enterprise. But I think it's really important to say that both of those groups, whilst of course they have the title women in there, they are very intersectionality focused, which is something that I'll come on to later. Giving something back is important to me too. So I am the ambassador for the Hunger Project. It's a charity that provides entrepreneurial education for women in underdeveloped countries to help them to move out of hunger and poverty through, as I say, education and entrepreneurial skills. And finally, I'm very privileged to have won a number of awards, including, as I say, the most recent one being my book. So that kind of gives you a little bit of a flavour about me, really, and why I've been very kindly invited to kind of talk to you today. Excuse me. Okay, so yeah, as we covered, this is our roadmap today. So taking stock, why it's absolutely important, why leadership needs to, diversity really needs to stay at top of that leadership agenda. how this kind of situation and our enforced working from home, what the effect that it's had on diversity and inclusion. And then really what I want to do is to sort of plant some seeds for you and think about how this shift really is actually providing an opportunity for organisations to pause and to reset their inclusivity initiatives. And then finally, certainly I'm not going to cover it, but, you know, in light of the government announcement yesterday, then really organisations and society actually needs to start looking at an inclusive reintegration. So I'm going to pose a few questions for you to think about. So when we start to think about inclusion and diversity, I'm going to say it is nothing new. So, you know, this is a concept that has been around certainly for a very, very long time. But what we have seen is that certainly in the last kind of few weeks, that actually we've gone from the top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which talked about, you know, motivation theories way back in the 1940s. So we've gone from, you know, some individuals and organizations being way up there in terms of looking at innovation and sort of potential, literally to spiraling right down to the bottom of the pyramid, where many of us feel that we've been, you know, barely able to protect our own well-being, those of our loved ones, possibly our colleagues and family and friends as well. But what we can see is that the need for love, belonging, friendship, it absolutely forms part of that foundation. So you can see there, you know, even on the third rung, you know, the need for that friendship and so the inclusion and belonging piece, it's absolutely vital. So, you know, we really are, or I'm really going to encourage organisations to leverage the diversity and inclusion, because it will be an accelerator for them going from thriving from surviving to thriving. So why is a reset important? Well, I think it's fair to say that the sand has most definitely shifted. So in this crisis mode, you know, all hands, you know, have been on deck, sort of triaging the most important challenges. Companies have been forced to adopt new ways of working to survive. So, you know, previously flexible working may have been seen as an inconvenience or even a tick box to satisfy perhaps a diversity and inclusion initiatives, but now for many it is a business imperative. So certainly as organisations now look to the future to put people back to work on this phased approach, then, you know, or to reduce the commuter crush, and again all of the things that were announced yesterday, you know, these will be again golden opportunities for organisations to consider their organisation design and to create models that are going to be productive and empower their organisation. So employees will also drive change going forward. So creating a newer and stronger normal will absolutely require the voices of all of those, including those in underrepresented groups, to be heard. And I think, you know, initially, yes, I'm going to say businesses, and there will be this economic kind of power that will drive organisations going forward. But the longer term, I genuinely believe that it will be employees who will consciously choose who they want to work for, the culture within that organisation and the service that they're offering. I think many individuals, as I'll come on to in a few moments, will have really had some moments of, I'm going to say, epiphany whilst they've been away, but I'll touch on that in a second. I think the other thing that this recent situation has really led us to see and understand is that talent will have no geographical barriers. You know, technology, love it or loathe it, you know, it's something that's been certainly thrust upon us in the past few days. But what it has done is enable us, as I say, for these geographical barriers to be removed. So, you know, historically, when organisations have said that they're unable to attract talent, whether it be, you know, that they're in a rural location or perhaps somewhere that is less glamorous, you know, those will be removed now, as I say, as a result of the advancement and engagement in most parts of technology. So it's a great opportunity, as I say, for organisations to think about how they capitalise on this and how they look for talent of the future. I think I mentioned to you before that, I think employee expectations will have changed. So, I know myself, taking this time out, then, it really does cause you to kind of question things, your life in general. And of course, people will have sit there thinking about, whether they actually want to return at all. They'll question, have they been valued within their organisation? How have they been treated during this situation? Is the job really what it is that they want to do? Do they want to spend hours commuting? So I genuinely believe that there will be a movement of talent. I think employees will choose jobs that give them freedom, flexibility and purpose. So now isn't the time to sideline diversity and inclusion. It can no longer be siloed or devalued, but it is a golden opportunity for organisations to integrate diversity and inclusion into all of their people programmes. And yet, sadly, this is the vision, I think, of some organisations. So, they may have historically heard about what diversity and inclusion is. They may even have asked questions in the past about, whether they should embrace it at all. And some organisations are really not quite clear where to start. So, again, this is a great opportunity for them to recognise that, it's not a nice to have, but it absolutely is an imperative. So my mission is to enable over 10,000 companies to create an inclusive workplace culture. Not enough attention is being paid to intersectionality, so parts of workforce are actually being left out. Companies focus on tactical initiatives, typically such as, I'm going to say, women's development programs, and those are great. However, they run the risk of alienating, a vast majority of the workforce as well. And of course, some initiatives also don't address systemic bias. So this is my mission, to help all of those organisations really recognise and understand what an inclusive organisation looks like. And so to do that, there are a number of initiatives that I've put together, because I recognise, as say, this journey, it's a marathon, it's definitely not a sprint. So these are some of the ways that I help organisations, and those forward-thinking companies that put people first will most definitely succeed. But as I say, it can be a challenging road, but one that organisations don't have to go on themselves. So at the heart of all of those initiatives is the Tribe 5 diversity and inclusion methodology that I've created. This methodology focuses on 5 key areas. And when organizations look at their inclusion journey, they can think about the energy that they're investing and the areas that they're focusing on within their organization. So what I'm going to do now is just take you through those 5 steps briefly. The taking stock really is all about looking at the people practices that you have in place. So those can be things like your recruitment, your reward strategies. Up until a few weeks ago, those organizations that had 250 employees or more were clearly required to submit their gender pay data. And so again, now is a great opportunity to revisit that, certainly as organisations think about, restructuring and possibly, as I say, how they're going to focus on job roles and even how they're going to reward individuals. So again, this is a great opportunity to take stock of those particular areas and activities. But as well as taking stock, it's really important to be transparent. Your people will see and feel and hear, their experience of your organisation every day. So, let's not pretend it's something that it isn't. Let's be really honest and open about, the areas of your organisation, and, don't shy away from what your data is telling you. So, as I say, things in here, are around reward, recruitment, wellness, why people leave you, what policies and procedures you're having. I would imagine after last night's announcement, then, there will be lots and lots of HR professionals this morning scrabbling around to update policies to reflect the current changes that are rapidly happening. So again, take stock, but also be transparent. So then we move on to R, raise awareness. So, here this is about ensuring that actually, we recognise the value and difference that people are able to bring and offer within a workplace, and that we're all unique. We don't have, the same thought process. And so, just checking in with our own biases is really important. We all have them, whether we like to admit it or not, but where do they show up and how do they impact on the decisions perhaps that we're making? Another way to look at raise awareness is actually about appreciation. So rather than considering a difference, as in, something that's perhaps unusual to me, it's actually about recognizing and appreciating that difference and working out where that kind of difference can help, can aid, is better. It brings diversity of thought. So, those kind of areas are important. So how do you educate others about your difference? But equally, as I say, how do you create that opportunity for others to share their experience as well? So networks are likely to be important here within organisations. How can you get them to educate the organisation and share knowledge so that it starts to influence an organisation's operating practices? The next part of the model is I, so inspire and involve. And of course, what we have seen certainly over, the last few weeks is these amazing stories, I'm going to say from really, really normal and ordinary people, because often, we place such emphasis on having inspiring role models as being, superheroes or significant individuals who may be kind of on the television or celebrities, but actually we need to create environments whereby we are recognizing and valuing the brilliant things that our people are doing around us all of the time. So again, gather all of that information together. Certainly at the moment, think about people, inviting them to share their career journeys and challenges. But again, think about making those opportunities and initiatives really, really diverse. So, if you don't feel that you currently have a diverse workforce, reach out to your local communities, schools, colleges as well. Really, really bring those in. So think about inspiring, as I say, your current workforce, but also as you look for the new and next generation. Mentoring programs can really help. So in this current situation, when we're looking to bring people back into, I'm going to say, the workplace, then some people may be feeling particularly frightened at the moment. I think I said to you before, they may have had an epiphany moment. So, mentoring opportunities can really, really provide a great space for people to understand, what is it, what needs to happen, what needs to help to build their confidence back up again. So mentoring can help as well. And of course, another area in Inspire and Involved, I talked about sort of intersectionality. So, we recognise that in many groups there is this underrepresentation. So, look to have some advocates and ambassadors and allies. So these are people that, look and listen actively. They are going to be educated on the differences of others, but they're very proactive and seek to educate themselves. Actually, they won't stand on the sidelines, so they won't tolerate unacceptable behaviour, and they will be open to new things. So this is all sits within that Inspire and Involve piece. We then have Build for the Future. So as I say, we definitely have to look to the future, but that will be very, very different for all of us. I don't think, there is such a thing as normal anymore. So, this is a great opportunity for many organisations to break with traditions. So, historically, they may have suggested that they couldn't do things before, so working from home is a great example, but this, as I say, is a great opportunity. Query and question, do we still need to do those things? Do they serve as well? Look at how you're going to grow your talent, how you're going to harvest and support your existing talent of the future. How will you build your structures? How do you use your networks? You know, how do you think about, you know, developing sort of, as I say, the leaders of the future? How do you use technology? So all of those things really, really sit well within that sort of build for the future. And of course, as we look to grow our economy, how can you use different suppliers, you know, suppliers that really do harness diversity and inclusion as well? So that all sits within that build for the future element. And then finally, we have Embed, and this is often something that organisations fail to do. So as I say, they have these great initiatives, some of them a bit piecemeal, but how do you ensure that this forms part of, you know, everyday practices, and this is embedded within your organisation? So I said at the beginning, you know, it's a marathon, it is not a sprint, and so resilience is really, really important. I think, you know, it's about having those inspiring visions and values and really, really living to those. Absolutely have a champion that at the top of the organisation that is, you know, looking for diversity and inclusion and is that champion for it. But actually, when you embed this within your organisation, it really, really sits at the heart of everything that you do. Set goals for everybody, so they too know the role and contribution that they play. Communication is absolutely vital. So, you know, make sure that when you do have communication and you're looking, say, to communicate with your people, that it is clear, consistent, but it's also diverse, so that, you know, everybody is able to access it in different formats. And you know, again, there is that level of transparency. So as we look then to have our reintegration, so as I say, I'm not going to cover last night's government announcement, but, you know, there will be people out there who are very, very eager to get back into the workplace. And then equally, there will be some for a whole host of reasons that are now feeling perhaps a little bit reticent or frightened even. And again, in truth, I've heard some organisations sharing with me that there is, even within their own workforce, a potential divide. So, you know, there's some of those individuals who have been furloughed and some that have carried on working within the same organisation. And you know, they have seen this real kind of divide between the two, because sometimes the ones that are working feel that the ones on furlough are having a holiday, and actually that's not the case at all. I've also had a brilliant example whereby, you know, one leader in an organisation sent a video message to thank all of those staff that are furloughed for the role and contribution that they are playing in actually saving the organisation. So I think it's just being really clear and innovative and showing your appreciation for the role that everybody is playing. But notwithstanding that, it will be difficult. So I'd encourage you, in the context of the workplace, to think about inviting your people to share what one thing the current situation has enabled them to do that they couldn't do before. And this level of insight will be really, really powerful for you as you start to reshape your journey and your organisation going forward. I'd ask them to think about one thing that they want you to continue to do that helps them with coping with the demands of the situation. And, you know, these are really unprecedented times, and everybody will, of course, need something different. But again, it will help you to shape the support mechanism that you need to put in place. And finally, again, this is about, you know, when they're reintegrating back into the workplace, what do they need? You know, some people are concerned about social distancing, whether it be in an office or a factory environment, for example, or serving customers. So, you know, what is on their mind? You know, seek to understand those things, and it will help you, say, to shape your solutions, but in a really, really inclusive way. So some organisations are really embracing this, and you know, this is an organisation that I've supported very, very recently. You know, they recognise that now absolutely was the time to integrate diversity and inclusion into their people programmes. You know, we spent some time. I did a virtual session for them and their leadership team, and they were all really encouraged to think about what diversity and inclusion means for them, the role and contribution that they played. So again, I'd really encourage you to do exactly the same. So everything that organisations do moving forward matters now more than ever, and leaders and HR practitioners definitely have choices to make. They can reinstate antiquated people practices that, you know, perpetuate a downward spiral, or they have the opportunity to create a new reality where every employee can thrive. So my top tips then is, first of all, it's important to diagnose your specific diversity and inclusion challenge, because this is where you will start to think about what's right for your organisation. So rather than looking what others are doing, think about what is going to be right for you. Everyone plays a role and contribution. For me, I genuinely believe that real progress can only be made when we come together and we share that responsibility. Inclusion, well, I think I said before, some initiatives tend to be exclusive at the expense of others. So really think about intersectionality. Otherwise, we will continue to alienate people, and this systemic bias will continue. Break with traditions. Again, this is a golden opportunity. Some organizations have rapidly had to change the way that they have worked. So again, let's really question, do the practices that we had before, do they serve us for the situation and for a modern day society, or is this now an opportunity to really fast track forward? And for me, finally, then, inclusion is 24/7. It's not just when people are looking. Inclusion is you and me, and everyone around us. So it does absolutely involve us all. So I think that kind of covers my presentation today. I'd love you to stay in touch, and I'm very happy to answer any queries or questions that you may have.
Teresa, thank you very much for that. That was a great presentation. I'm just going to put some of the contact details you put here on the. Can I share them in the chat? Your email address, for instance?
Yes, please do.
So it's Teresa. Oops, my spelling is not helping this morning. Teresa at inclusion247.com.
Yeah, inclusion 24/7. Yeah.
Grand. So I will. So if people want to get in touch, that's the email to do so. The website is www.junglehr.com. So it's yes. I mean, you raised some interesting points there. Obviously, the address last night was certainly, I think, will be first and foremost in people's minds. People are unclear how they get back to work at this stage, or what that looks like, and what will the work landscape look like when we get back. Obviously for larger organizations, they will most likely survive. I think a lot of smaller companies are worried whether they will be able to survive. If you're a big company, clearly you have more ability to absorb a shock like this, but smaller companies, it's going to present more of a challenge. And I think one of the tricky things that people are trying to face is not knowing when we will return to normalcy in some sort of way. I mean, as an HR professional and an advisor, are you seeing people, wanting more move sort of more towards permanent working from home, or the right to work from home? Is that something that you think will become something that we see on a going forward basis?
Yeah, I think it's really mixed. There's a real echo.
I think maybe turn your volume a bit.
That's why I took my headphones off before. Yeah, so I think there's a real mix. I think organisations do expect to have an influx of flexible working requests. I'm going to take this off. So they expect, as I say, to have the flexible working requests. Equally, there are some organisations out there who have predicted this, and actually they've asked their employees whether they want to continue to work from home. And there's one organisation I know, they're based up in Scotland, and they have a workforce of 50, and actually they've said no, they don't want to go back to working in an office. They've actually really valued, they're more productive, and so they're going to make plans to carry on and work remotely, but look to ways, as I say, that they can all come together. There are large organisations, so again, I'm sure I've seen on the news somewhere that Google have actually said, you know what, regardless as to what's happening, we are not going back, they're taking that time. I recognise, as I say, for some organisations to thrive and survive, they have to go back. So again, there is this kind of real balance, but I think what many organisations, I have seen them do very proactively, is at the end of last week, they sent a note out to their workforce that said, look, whatever the government say on Sunday, please continue to do what you're doing until we can create an environment that is going to be right for you and for our customers, and that it's the right place. So they've already put those measures in place.
Okay, thank you. We have a question here from Eleanor, who is asking for some examples of practices that you think many organizations might need to change.
Yeah, oh, the guy, I'll take this off. So flexible working obviously is going to be one up there. I think, you know, wellness is most definitely going to be up there as well. So, you know, organizations wanting or embracing the fact that, as I say, we just need to be well at work. So, you know, having that dialogue around sort of, you know, the mental health conversation that previously was avoided, then I think will definitely be up there. I think, you know, the way that we support each other, the way that we engage, you know, change management is going to be huge up there, and certainly leadership as well. So many organizations previously, their leadership style has often been a bit command and control, and I can only lead from with you if you're kind of sat in front of me. But you know, there will be a real change in that sort of leadership emphasis and style as well, certainly to one being more transparent and empathetic, and I mean authentically empathetic as well. You know, I used to have a boss years ago who every morning would go, "Hello, how are you?" and before he'd even had a chance to reply, he was off down the corridor. So, you know, that wasn't a real kind of question and in terms of how I was. So I think those types of things will definitely change. But I think my other advice really would be ask your employees what wants changing or what needs to change, because again, it's not a one size fits all. It has to be right for your organization.
Great, thank you. We have another question here from Rachel, who is asking whether you could give your thoughts, please, on unconscious bias training.
Yeah, I'll definitely take them off this. So I do have a view on unconscious bias training, and it might be slightly controversial in the sense that in isolation, it doesn't work. And the reason why it doesn't work is because what you do is you tend to sort of raise and surface the fact that, you know, these are unconscious biases, but then you don't do anything about it or with them, or you don't wrap practices around them whereby employees are, I'm going to say, safe to call those things out or to challenge them. And I genuinely have known organisations that have rolled it out, sort of piecemeal training, whether it be an online solution or a 30-minute, you know, briefing, and that's it, tick box. So unconscious bias training definitely has a role to play, but as part of a holistic approach to your organisation, rather than, as I say, a piecemeal sort of situation. So as I say, if you have it as part of, you know, a holistic approach, brilliant. But if it's just a tokenistic tick box exercise, I'd really encourage you to think about doing something different.
Okay. Thank you, Teresa. There is a follow-up to that. So asking then whether unconscious bias training as part of an inclusion and diversity lab training program would be good.
Yeah, so again, if it's, you have to remember that we all have it, not just leaders. So, you know, when you are sat, I'm going to say, in a meeting, for example, and you only hear the same voices, as a leader, then you should be tuning into that says, you know, what am I missing? Am I going for, you know, a halo effect? Am I just, you know, looking at others because it's a conformity? So those are the things when we look at unconscious bias training that we all really need to be aware of. And that's why, as I say, it's important that we roll it out into everything that we do. You know, the things that we write, how we speak to individual, who we sit with, clearly not the moment because we're social distancing, but, you know, when we have lunch with colleagues, etc., who do we gravitate towards? So when we look at unconscious bias training, it should be, as I say, for everyone and not just for a few.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that answer. So it sounds, I mean, it sounds like we are theoretically moving back towards some degree of normalcy in the nearest future, according to the statement last night. So hopefully that is the case. And hopefully, obviously it will bring about a sort of sea change, I suppose, in the way many institutions, interact. And I think, one of the points you made earlier, is very true. This has been a particularly trying time for people mentally. I think sort of semi-enforced imprisonment effectively is what it is. I mean, even in your own home, but it has been a very difficult period mentally for a lot of people. And I think companies that haven't been checking in and haven't been sensitive to the fact that it is, has been a difficult period, will leave some of their employees feeling unsupported. And so people will, potentially look for companies where they are, treated in a manner which is more supportive on a going forward basis. So I think it will be interesting to see how the workplace does evolve post this crisis. Yes. So I think, Tracy is saying that Boris used the word existential in his speech yesterday, which didn't feel a very inclusive term. Senior management buy-in is key, leading from the top. I'm sure that is true. I think that, as companies evolve and younger, more dynamic people who are more attuned with these ideas start to take control, we will see a marked shift over time. But of course, it will take time for that to filter up to the top sometimes in a lot of these institutions.
But I think, I'm going to take this off. I'm going to keep hearing myself. I think, everybody, regardless as to your age or gender, this absolutely will have caused people to question so many things in their lives. Do they want, as I say, to be spending time away from their families? Do they want to be even doing the same career? Is it time for them to have a change? Have they only ever done something because historically either the company has directed their career, or again, they've been influenced in a way? Does the organization that they work for, is it based on purpose, or is it based purely on profit? So I genuinely believe, as I say, that people will question those things. And that's why I said earlier on in my presentation, I think historically organizations have driven employees. I think there'll be a real switch going forward, and I think employees will there'll be a real force coming through, and those leaders that are inclusive and have authentic leadership will absolutely gain throughout this sort of situation. I think those leaders that have very much a command and control, they really won't. It will for a while, but it won't be sustainable.
Fair enough. Thank you, Teresa. We have another question here from Jess, who's asking if management is mainly, in parentheses, almost solely focused on diversity and inclusion as part of recruitment, what ways can we encourage them to also put focus on creating an inclusive environment for the current staff?
So I think that it's a really good point, because you have to make sure that you're setting people up for success. And so you can go out and you can share stories about how great and inclusive an organization is. But when that individual arrives, if that's not their experience, they will leave. And so why would you not want to create an environment really that enables everybody to thrive? And often some of the inclusion changes that organizations are encouraged to make and consider, they don't just benefit one or two, they're actually, as I say, for the greater good of everybody. So I agree with that point in terms of, yes, organizations are encouraged through their recruitment practices to look at a wide and diverse talent pool, and again, they should be appointed on merit as opposed to tokenism. But it's also about setting everybody up for success. It's about setting the pace and the culture of an organization so that everybody's unique difference and everybody's unique talent is able to shine through. So I hope that kind of makes sense. It's not about, as I say, creating a separate environment. It's about making the whole environment so much better.
Great, thank you. Perfect, you're back.
Yeah.
Well, that was very helpful, and I know that you wanted to share also with everyone. You had a diversity and inclusion scorecard, which is part of the Jungle website. So I'm going to post that in the link there. Can you see?
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. So essentially, the scorecard, it's completely free to take. I don't know about you, but I do like some free things. But it helps, in truth, me. So go back to my mission to enable 10,000 companies to create an inclusive workplace culture. And so I wanted, as I say, to have a solution for organisations to really assess where they are on those 5 key areas that I talked about. So what they can do is they can take the scorecard and they just answer 40 yes/no questions. And then what they'll get is a 16-page report, which will identify where they are on those 5 key areas, and also give them some areas of recommendation for enhancement should they wish. So yeah, it's my gift to everybody that comes on the webinar today.
Great, thank you. Oh, there we are. Now you can hear me again. Thank you. I've also posted the link to the book Closing the Gap, which is available on the web. It's a link via the website, I see.
Yeah, so Closing the Gap, she says, I've got a copy here. I've always got a hard copy. There we are. So Closing the Gap. So yeah, it came out last year. It was Amazon #1 in the hot new releases within a week. Honestly, I've never been hot at anything in my life, so I was absolutely thrilled. Though I'm moving into a certain phase of my life, so I tend to be having a few warmer moments than I care to enjoy. Yeah, within a month it was Amazon #1 bestseller, and I'm absolutely thrilled because earlier this year, well in March actually, it was highly commended in the 2020 Business Book Awards for an exceptional book that promotes diversity. And what the book does in truth is it talks you through all of the 5 steps. So it's based on the tribe methodology. So yeah, it's packed with case studies and resources and things that organizations can do. So again, the link's there. It is available on Amazon as well, should anybody wish.
Great. Well, Teresa, thank you very much for that, and thank you for coming on this morning and sharing with us, and for giving us your time this morning. It's been wonderful to have you on as a guest.
You're very welcome. And
if anyone would like further information, please, the details are in the chat. Teresa at inclusion247.com or junglehr.com. So all the links are available there, and I hope everyone stays safe and has good luck getting back to work this week or not, depending on what we're supposed to be doing.
Absolutely. Take care. Stay well, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.